The Right Honourable Louis Saint Laurent was the greatest Canadian Prime Minister because he fought for the rights of many Canadians. He wasn't a corrupted politician, nor was he power-hungry. He was a kind and thoughtful man who put his country's needs before his own. That is why he is the greatest Canadian Prime Minister. Louis Saint Laurent was born into a poor family in Compton, Quebec in 1882. What made him really special is that he grew up speaking both English and French because his parents belonged to two different ancestries. Later, he will be able to unite both the French and English Canadians. He studied at the College St. Charles Seminary for 6 years to receive a BA degree and then attended the Laval University to get his degree in law. Saint Laurent worked as a lawyer from 1905 to 1941, became the professor of law at the oldest center of education in Canada, the Université Laval, in 1914. Saint Laurent practiced corporate and constitutional law in Quebec and became one of the country's most respected counsel. He served as the president of the Canadian Bar Association from 1930 to 1932, which is an association of over 37,000 lawyers and judges, notaries, law teachers, and law students from across Canada. Louis Saint Laurent was fondly known as Uncle Louis because of his love for children and his ability to connect with people. He was the first prime minister to build a media image for himself. Thus, people affectionately remembered Uncle Louis as a kind and warm-hearted man. Louis Saint Laurent and his fight for equality. Women's rights. In Canada, before the 1950s, women did not have the equal pay as men. In fact, a woman would only get 50% to 64% of a man's paycheck for doing the exact same amount of work, simply because she is a woman. This was especially tough for single mothers or widows who had to support her family on her measly salary. Fortunately, Louis Saint Laurent was passionate about human rights. He understood the plights that women have suffered. Therefore, under his rule as Prime Minister, the Female Employee Fair Remuneration Act was born, giving women equal pay. If it weren't for Louis Saint Laurent, then perhaps modern-day women would still be struggling for equal pay to men. Minority rights. Louis Saint Laurent argued for the minority rights of Jewish people. He recognized that Jewish people had the right to establish a non-Christian school to attend. That is why, in modern days, schools celebrate diversity instead of trying to stifle it. He also lifted the ban on First Nations potlatches. Louis Saint Laurent was hand-chosen by Mackenzie King, former Prime Minister, to precede him. Saint Laurent was reluctant to run for PM because he preferred a peaceful life instead, but he realized that his country needed him, so he put his own needs aside for the greater good. He ran for the Liberal Party and won on 15th of November 1948 and continued to the 21st of June 1957. Saint Laurent was ranked number 4 on a survey of the first 20 Prime Ministers of Canada done by a Canadian historian, while John Diefenbaker was rated only number 13. Louis Saint Laurent was not a coward. In the 1950s, a Korean War broke out. The Korean War is when North Korea invaded South Korea. The North was communist and they hated South Korea for being democratic. Definitions. Communism is an authoritarian government that believed that everything belongs to the state. Democratic is a government that is chosen by the people. Canada is an example of a democratic government. Louis Saint Laurent made it his mission to protect the South Koreans from the invading communists. Thus, Canada joined NATO and sent troops to Korea. Although there are no winners in the Korean War since an armistice was declared, which means ceasing fire, the modern South Koreans are thriving while their neighbors are not. In 1948-9, Louis Saint Laurent convinced Newfoundland to join Canada. He had to convince many opposition, and he managed to make equal minimum pay in all provinces. Modern-day Newfoundland has been a great asset to Canadian economy. The oil found in Newfoundland and Hibernia produce approximately 884 million barrels of usable oil. Louis Saint Laurent retired from being Prime Minister in January 1958 at the age of 75 for his 76th birthday next month. The cause of his resignation was that, after nearly 20 years in service for the Liberal Party, he needed some time to himself and for his grandchildren, for which he had many. He will always be remembered for his dedication, his determination, his patriotism, and intelligence, and he became very familiar with many people, and he worked hard for them. Saint Laurent in 1967 was known as a sponsor of the Order of Canada to serve and support his country. This honor is the second highest honor anyone could get in Canada.